Hey,
Yeah.
there's already people in. That's
Yeah.
great. Okay, so welcome everyone. And if you don't already know, this is our spoiler talk of Cobra Kai season 3. And so if you haven't seen the show, then come back after you've watched it. Come back and watch this after it's done. But today I'm joined by Josh from After Credits. How are you, Josh?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. I was a big fan of this season and the show as a whole, so I'm really excited to talk about it in spoilers.
Yeah, same. I've always been a big fan of the Karate Kid movies. Like at least the first one has been one of my favorites for years, and I remember watching the sequels, like part two, part three, and the Jaden Smith one from 2010, I think it is. I remember watching them. I know they're not that great, but still, but that original one, I watched it back sometime in school this year, and it's such a great movie. It still is. And I binged the whole show when it was added to Netflix, and it's awesome. And season 3 might just be the best one yet. Do you agree?
Yeah, I definitely think season 3 I like how it actually ties into like the Karate Kid 2, especially with
Yep.
the characters in Okinawa. That was really great.
Oh yeah, I really love seeing that. And I remember like after I like would watch the episode, I'd go and I'd look on IMDb like, is it the same actors? And it is. It really
Yeah,
is.
that's
And I,
they've done a good job of building up this universe. Sorry, I watched too many Marvel films. They did a good job of connecting it to the actual other films rather than just the original. Because when I
yeah,
first going into Cobra Kai, I knew there was the original, obviously, and I knew about the Jaden Smith remake, but I had no idea there were like 3 other sequels. And I watched, I was like, oh wow, okay, there's so much.
yeah, I really like how they tied that in because obviously the first one, they have the characters riding on bikes, like Hawk and them. They're riding on like bikes like they do in the original,
Mm.
and of course, the Halloween party in the first season. And then I like how they kind of expanded it, as you said. They go to the second one and they have some of the characters, and I love one of my favorite scenes was when I forget the guy's name, but it's the one who's like live or die, man, and then.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
who was from part 2 at the end,
Funny.
and then it like gets intense, and he's like honk, kind of like
Yeah,
how they
I
used
was
to do
like,
it. I was not expecting that, and then it kind of like it was like a little like a PTSD kind of flash, which I really liked.
yeah. It was I when I as soon as you went like that, I was like, where have I seen this before? Oh, it's from, and I like when you learn about more about Kreese's backstory, it ties into the Karate
Yeah,
Kid Part 3. And first, like when you see Kreese younger, he's fighting in the Vietnam War. You see a
yeah,
guy with black hair and a ponytail, and I'm thinking, is that Terry Silver, the guy from Karate
yeah.
Kid Part 3? But so I guess it's not him. But then you see another guy who says, Kreese, you saved my life. I owe you. So I'm assuming that's Terry Silver because he calls him later.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I was like, who does he say? But then when I thought about it, I was like, they're gonna tie that in for sure. And
Yeah.
I haven't seen the Karate Kid Part 3 in years, but I remember that guy being like big, scary, like
Yeah.
badass kind of
Yeah.
guy, which is interesting. And I really, really like the war flashbacks. I know some people didn't. Like I watched some reviews and some people didn't like them. I like them. I think they fit well, and it helped tell the story of how Kreese, like why he is the way he is.
Yeah. And even when you see the fact that, he pushed the guy into a pit full of cobras,
Yeah,
like
I like
it
that.
gives meaning to the name Cobra Kai, which you didn't expect it, but it's really smart that they did that.
Yeah, and then I also liked how what was I going to say? How he started off as he wasn't like this big tough guy. He was being bullied at the start. In the diner when he was working, I expected him to be the one in the booth with the girl
Yeah.
at
Same.
first, and then when they said, "Chris, get back to work," I was like, "Whoa, wait!" So I like that. It's kind of cool how they show that at one time he was vulnerable, and then he has kind of changed, and the Vietnam War changed him. And I also like how he uses the whole Vietnam War thing to get out of like legal
Yeah.
situations and stuff like
I'm
that.
an old veteran, please. Yeah.
That's
And not
exactly it.
not only was he just vulnerable, but he was similar to Daniel in a way. He was bullied. The girl eventually goes to him because he was the nice guy,
Yeah.
and obviously Daniel went down a different path, but it's kind of a nice parallel, I guess.
Yeah, and I really like that because it was kind of cool to see the inner splice, and it was kind of funny how they like muted the colors a bit to show that it was in Vietnam
Yeah.
War. I was like, okay, like that's funny, but I found those scenes also really intense, and like that final fight where it was like him versus his captain or whatever. That was intense. That was
Yeah.
really intense.
And also, you think, Kreese is as bad and as big as they get, but then you learn there's someone way more intense and way more deadly, I guess, than him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you see like this is kind of part of the reason he is the way he is. And I love how they took the thing like it's like the traditional kind of thing to do where you take the relationship and you're like, "Oh yeah, she's gone." And then that's kind of what snaps him. So that was
Yeah.
like the first thing that really
I
got him
was
to go.
I mean, when he first said not a word of this goes to Kreese, I was like, oh, maybe she's, I don't know, married someone else or something. But then when he says she's dead, I was, what? Wow, he's about to get mad. He's gonna.
Yeah, I knew that wasn't gonna end well. I had a pretty clear idea, like, oh yeah, they're gonna kill her off. Like that was kind of for me. I was like, oh yeah. But when I was like thinking about it, I was like, how are they gonna tell him? And then when he volunteered to go up, I was like, oh no, like that's not gonna end well. And what did you think of the whole, fight at the end in the house?
So I think you're not gonna be able to match the school fight at the end of season 2 because that's probably my favorite favorite fight in all of Cobra Kai. Yeah, and so I get you don't want to have something too catastrophic as that because you don't want to feel like you're just doing the same feeling because if you had someone getting a major injury like Miguel falling off the stairs
Yeah.
people would just feel like, well, you're just doing the same thing. So I get why it was toned down slightly. I hated seeing this sounds weird every glass object getting broken in the LaRusso family. That just made me go, oh, he's gonna have to repay for that. And it's a weird thing to think, but it was
Yeah.
the battle was good, and I like how Eagle Fang, which I'll get to that name in a second. I like how Eagle Fang and Miyagi-Do teamed up against Cobra Kai. They really
Yeah.
in this. I mean, they say this, they quote this a lot, but in this series, they lean into the whole "enemy of my enemy is my friend" thing, and
Yeah.
so I like that aspect. But a few things is Miguel could barely do the kick to the frisbee a day ago, and
Oh
now
yeah.
he didn't win the fight, but he held his own pretty well for someone who couldn't fight
He
that
was
well.
getting beaten really hard
I
at the
mean,
side where he was boom, boom. I
and
was like, oh Jesus.
I was expecting a lot more from Tori and Sam. Like you just think it's going to be this big clash, but then it was. I mean, Sam kind of had a good arc in this season because she started
Yeah.
off really afraid and everything, and she learned to conquer those fears. And I guess a lot of the things left at the end of season 3 are going to be resolved in season 4. So I really can't wait to see a lot of those things handled. What did you think of that final?
Oh, I think, well, first of all, I think that season 4, I feel like they're just going to keep topping themselves because every season I've liked more than the last, and I
Yeah.
love them all, by the way. But I preferred the house fight only because I felt that it had more like emotional weight behind it. So
Right.
it kind of helped in the way that you were really feeling because you could tell these characters were angry in the school fight. And I love the school fight. It was my favorite scene of the series up until I watched that last episode. I still think it's fantastic. And it has a great like emotions when he kicks him off the
Yeah.
edge or whatever. But here you had the buildup of the entire thing, and then you see all these characters who like Tori and Sam, like they had hated each other. And then earlier when they first tried to have like that confrontation with them, Sam couldn't move and she was like sitting there, and then we see her defend herself in the way of using the fishing tactics. So I
Yeah.
think that was cool because they used that, that first that Daniel taught her, like her dad, and then it was used there. And at first I was like, oh, Hawk's changing,
Yeah.
that's kind of a little forced. But then I was like, no, I like that, finally, because you could tell through the whole season, like when he first broke, the guy's
Eli,
arm,
I think.
yeah, his arm. You could tell he didn't want to. It was just one of the
Yeah.
peer pressure things, and so I like how it kind of like slowly throughout the episodes. Now it felt fast because I binged them all, but
Yeah.
slowly throughout the episodes, kind of got him to finally change. And then when he finally changed and he was like kicking off of people, I was like, that's pretty sick.
Yeah, I was gonna say that actually about Hawk. I like the fact that he did change, and I could see they were obviously
Yeah.
setting it up. But
Yeah.
I don't know. From like Eli seemed to forgive him really quickly. I mean, this dude broke your arm, and the next
Yeah.
day you're joking about the fact that your arm was broken to Miguel, and then you're automatically like best friends with Hawk again. I don't know. I mean, Hawk went really intense this season. He was like beating that
Yeah.
guy senselessly, and his
Like that
knuckles were
Batman trailer.
bloody. Yeah,
Yeah, that was, and one of my favorite like funny moments was when he had the cast, and then obviously they drew like the dick across it, and then the girl wrote
yeah.
on it. I laughed so hard during that. I was like, "That's good." Like I knew something was gonna happen with her. I wasn't sure if she would fully. And then when they catch those two like kissing, you're like, "Oh, I wouldn't date you, nerd." And then he turns around, he's like, "I'm so in love."
And actually, I'm glad they did something with her character because I don't
Yeah,
think she was in season 2, and so I think she just disappeared from the show maybe.
yeah.
But then they actually brought her back in a good way. But her friend is Moon her name, the one who was dating Hawk for a while. I
Uh,
don't know.
I can't remember her name, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, she was barely in this season.
Oh yeah.
Like they just, I don't know, she
And there
disappeared.
was one character I can't forget her name, but she was like the one who was
Is it
friends.
Robinson? Aisha, I think.
Maybe it's the one who was like family friends with the LaRussos, and
Yeah,
she was
and then
the girl.
and they
She
said she
wasn't
went to
in
private
here.
school. I think there was one
Oh
line where they said,
yeah,
you know, her
okay,
parents moved her
like
to private
her.
school because of the fight. But then, yeah,
Okay, yeah, I was wondering. I remember hearing that line, but I forgot who they were talking about. So I was wondering because she was a cool character. Like she was nothing special, but she was a really cool character, and I like that. And I
yeah,
was interested. I was like, where did she go? But that makes sense. They did say that.
yeah.
I forgot about that.
I guess another big thing from this season is the return of Ali, which
Yes.
obviously they teased at the end of season 2. You know,
Yep.
has accepted your Facebook friend request, and then, but still, I think they did enough to take your mind off her. There was like enough
Yes.
things happening for you to just sort of that was in the back of your mind, and then when you know her mom's like walking through the house, she's like,
Yeah, I was like,
she's
wait.
there.
And I really like that because Elizabeth Shue, like,
Yes.
I like that it was her because, of course, I mean, she's in the original movies. She's in some of the Back to the Future movies. She's in Adventures in Babysitting, so a classic from the 80s. But seeing her back here, I was like, that's so cool. And that whole dinner scene where they're talking, and we get some even more backstory
Yeah,
on the relationships. I found that really cool because I always liked their relationship back in the movies, and I was wondering like what happened to them. And I like how his wife was kind of just like, "You're my favorite person. Like, keep telling me. Oh, I want to hear all about this." And I think her return was probably the best one of the show that we've had besides Crease so far.
yeah. And I think like the main premise of this show, or maybe to begin with, is to make you look at the film, The Karate Kid, in a different way because it straight away puts Johnny in the role of the protagonist. And so you're still
Yes.
like considering. I mean, there's even a line when they're having the PTA meeting or something. Danny LaRusso says, "I was bullied," and someone says, "Oh, that's bullshit. You know, I heard you were the real bully or something."
Yeah.
Sorry for swearing. But
No, that's
then
okay. Don't worry.
and then you what was I saying? But then you actually see it from Ali's perspective. You know, you see
Yeah.
there's actually a third way of looking at it. And when she said there are three sides to the story, yours, his, and then she says
The
the
truth.
truth. And I was like, oh, that's actually it's a good way.
Yeah, I really like that because I every time I watched it, but that's just the way I am. Is like my favorite character always seems to be like the lead. It's always been that way in movies for the
Mm.
most part. Like when you look at something like wrong way, the camera spoke like Harry Potter, like Star Wars. Sorry, it's like this side is
Yeah,
it's weird. The camera's mirrored, so it's weird. Yeah, it's always been like those are my favorites. So I've always felt that Daniel, and I still think that Daniel was like the good guy in the situation.
all right.
But I've more recently when I've heard about like other YouTubers even saying like, "Oh, Johnny was the one. He was the good one. Daniel was in the wrong." I'm like, that's interesting, and I like that was one of my favorite lines. Was this is your perspective, his perspective, and the truth. I was like, that kind of made me think, and I like that.
A weird thing is going into Cobra Kai, I was kind of already on Johnny's side, and here's why. So I don't know if you've seen the show How I Met Your Mother, but
Seen
anyway,
episodes.
yeah. So one of the main characters, Barney, he really loves the Karate Kid, but he thinks Johnny is the protagonist. He thinks Johnny is the good guy, and
Of
that
course.
Danny is the bad guy. And then William Zabka is in nearly a whole season. Like I think he's in the whole finale season of that show as
Really.
himself, and you know, he's at like his wedding and everything, and um, because Barney really loves him, and he thinks he calls William Zapka the Karate Kid. So because I watched that show so much, it kind of reshaped my mind to think actually maybe Johnny is the good guy of this story. And so because I
That
didn't
makes
see
sense.
Cobra Kai when it was first on YouTube. I mean, I'd
Yeah,
heard
me
about
neither.
it, but YouTube wasn't really a streaming service that was that
No.
recognizable, I don't think. So when it came onto Netflix, I watched it in about a week or something, both seasons.
Yeah, same.
And then going into, I was like, yeah, this is true. Actually, maybe Barney was onto something.
Oh, Barney's an interesting character. I need How I Met Your Mother is the next sitcom I'm gonna watch. I just need to finish Game of Thrones, which is I've been watching for a while. But yeah, when it comes to Cobra Kai, like as I said, I watched it the like day or the day after it premiered
Mm,
on Netflix, not on YouTube Red. I heard about it and I was like, this is interesting. But at
yeah,
the time, I wasn't watching like reviews on YouTube, so I didn't hear like too much about it. And then when it came to Netflix, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna watch this. And then I watched it. I was like, why is this so good? Like, how is it still good? One thing that you mentioned in your review too,
yeah.
which I did watch, I just haven't commented yet. Don't worry.
Okay.
Um, I it's like they have their cheesy lines from the '80s. Like they definitely have that.
Yeah.
They put them in, and most of the time it works. There were a few times where it's like, okay, like it always seemed to happen with Tori. Like I felt bad for Paid Enlisted sometimes because she always got like a few of the meh lines.
Mm-hmm.
Like when she's over, it was like at the start of the school fight, I think, where she's over the intercom. She's like, "I'm coming for you, bitch." And I was like, really? Like, is that the lines? And there were a few like that here, but there were less of them, and I like that. And I said how the acting improved from some of the side characters, and I believe that. Like I think that there were a few that were a little, I'm gonna do this, kind of a little stale, or like, but here I think because they also added the emotional weight, it kind of helped.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I mean, they have a lot of cringe things. I mean, there's like two boys who look about 8 years old, and they're just doing
yeah.
full blown karate with these guys.
Oh
Um,
yeah, there was a line. Sorry to interrupt you. There was a
yeah,
line he said where, hey, or I can't say your name, but yeah, hey. There was a line. It was from like the little kid, and it was right. I think it was right near it was near the end, and it's
yeah,
when
I know
they,
what you
they
mean.
knock
Yeah,
on the door. Yeah, I think you know what I'm talking about.
yeah.
He opens the door, and they're like, he kicked the fucking shit out of me.
I was like,
I was like, what?
I know this show like drops a few f bombs every now and then, but from the kid,
Yeah, it was so funny. Like when that came in, that surprised me. I rewinded it and watched it again because it shocked me so much. It's like The Karate Kid is a movie. It's like it's more of a family movie with mature themes. This
yeah,
show is for teenagers, like for
yeah,
sure. It's not for little kids with like obviously one of the other funny scenes was when it was Miguel and Sam and they started kissing in the
oh, yeah,
dojo and Daniel walked in and he's like, oh sorry. I found that really funny. And then he's like, you gotta, I think Daniel's like, you gotta calm down on your karate or something. He said something like that to him and he's like, no, don't worry, it's okay. Yeah.
yeah. And to go back to like that scene with the kid, when I don't know, there was a knock at the door or something, and someone said, "Oh, I bet it's Sam's dog," and you could just tell something was off. Like, it's not going to be a dog out there. What are you?
Yeah.
And then you see everyone really calm, and someone's getting a dog, and then out of nowhere, the guy gets flung through the window, just
Yeah.
fully like flies through the window, breaking it, and that was the first piece of glass broken. And I was like, "Oh gosh," and then he's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, okay." I do like how it embraces it. I mean, you've got a teenager with a full mohawk and an eagle tattooed on his back, but it feels normal
And the
because
Grim Reaper here.
yeah, because that's just the world they set up. So
Yeah.
it feels
And
nice.
what's really funny about that guy is I don't know if you ever watched it or saw the preview, but the show Kirby Buckets on Disney Channel
No,
has
I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen it, but I've seen episodes because that was back when like Disney Channel, and that was like the Hawk character Jacob something, and
Oh,
every time I saw him in the first season, I was like, oh no, it's Kirby Buckets coming back. And if you look it up, you'll be like, what the hell? It's really funny, but I like how he's put in a much better show because it's one of those like when Disney Channel was like going down, and it was just one of those shows. And it was kind of cool to see more. the guy's seen it.
Yeah.
More Disney Channel stars, like how you have Peyton List, who was obviously in Jesse
Yeah.
and Punk'd. And I when I first saw her, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like I didn't expect to see her, but I like her character because of the conflict with Sam. That's what I like about a lot of these kind of Cobra Kai characters is they're not the greatest characters in the world, but they make our lead characters better characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. About Peyton List actually. So I knew she was on the Disney Channel shows, but I didn't watch them much. So I knew her from Diary of a Wimpy Kid as Holly, and I was watching because she only comes in season 2 in Cobra Kai. So I was watching it and I was like, who is this person? I know her from somewhere. And then only as she's like beating someone up do I actually realize who she is. I'm like, oh, innocent, Peyton List is just
Yeah,
beating
I
someone.
know she's like changed. It's really funny, and yeah, when you I totally forgot she was in Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Yeah.
Oh, those movies are amazing. That's a different topic, though.
Yeah. Okay. One thing about this season is the name Eagle Fang, which so Johnny was saying we need something that's like above cobras. I thought right, it's gonna something to be with a lion, maybe king of the jungle and all that. Then he says eagle. I'm like, okay. Then Fang. Okay. Someone in the show even points out that eagles don't have fangs.
Yeah.
So for that reason, it just doesn't roll off the tongue like Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
Eagle Fang. I don't know what it is.
I think that's the point of it, though. When he said it,
Yeah.
I was like, "That's so stupid," but that's such a Johnny thing to do. Like
Yeah.
when you see him, messing with technology, and they're like, "Oh, Facebook," and he's like, "I threw my phone away. It's on your computer." Or like or when he's trying to bring the computer back, and he's like, "Yeah, it ran out of juice." He's like, "Did you charge it? You said it was wireless." It's just like that.
Yeah.
That was funny. I like that, and then.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Well, when he was talking to his stepdad, he's like, "This isn't going to be one of those hash brown Me Too things,
I was like, there's a lot of things they toned it down a little bit, which I was like, oh shit, because I like how they kind of like the whole politically incorrect kind of stuff that he says. I like how there were a few of them, but yeah, like the hash brown Me Too. I was like, oh, people aren't gonna like that, but it was really funny, and I like how he says like hash brown. There's like little things in the way that William Zabka says it and seems so clueless. Like obviously he'll know, but seems so clueless about it. Really makes it feel like he's actually, not too smart about it.
And so we find out more that actually Miyagi was still around while Sam was a young girl, and it's sort of nice. It sort of makes him as a grandfather figure to her as well as a father figure to Danny, which I liked.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And when they when he was reading or when she was reading that note, I got chills all over my body. I was like, oh, that's so sweet. And I like how kind of like when he first said like, oh, this is from the last week of, Mr. Miyagi's life. I was like, oh, and then, she read it and it was cool how it was someone from the Karate Kid Part 2, like when they went over there and it was her reading it. It kind of made it more special for Daniel to hear it instead of him. Like him reading it would be cool, but listening like to it being read aloud from someone who's like from where Mr. Miyagi is from, I'm pretty sure. It makes it even more special. And that was easily one of my favorite moments of the show.
Yeah. And I like when they go back to Okinawa and you see like it's been modernized, urbanized and everything. It's just shopping malls everywhere and
American Eagle, Red Lobster.
Yeah, exactly. That was quite funny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I really like that because he was just like, it was supposed to be like this. I like how it kind of not always in big ways, but in little ways, it'll kind of take a sharp turn where it's like, oh, this special thing where he's looking at the window and it's flashing back. And then he goes there and you're expecting like this big grand music goes up. And then he's like, shopping mall. It makes it really funny. But I did like how they showed like when they first showed her on stage. I thought it was her, but then I like how they flash back. Some people might not have liked how they flash back, but I liked it personally.
Yeah, and especially because some people, like when I first watched the first 2 seasons, I'd only seen the original Karate Kid. So when they have these references, I mean, it kind of spoils other films, but I don't mind because they're filling in the gaps at the right time, which I liked. I'm wondering if they're gonna use the next season or the next. I'm assuming they're gonna go beyond season 4.
They plan in like 6 or 8 seasons or something.
There you go. I wonder if they're going to tie into like the next Karate Kid, which was this
Yeah.
film with Hilary Swank, which is honestly horrible.
I haven't seen it on purpose.
Yeah, there you go. I don't. It's really bad. But it's got Mr. Miyagi. It's part of the same timeline as the other three, and then maybe even I was thinking maybe they could have a thing where Jaden Smith is walking by or something, or you see him fighting, and then you go,
cool.
"Hey, kid, would you like to join our dojo?" He's like, "Oh, sorry, I know kung fu, not karate, so I don't know, something like that."
I did find that really funny about the movie, how it's called The Karate Kid, yet he was learning kung fu.
Yeah,
Like, that's just one of the things that now that you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, that was kind of funny.
yeah.
And yeah, like I haven't seen the Jaden Smith one in so long. Like a lot of these, I haven't seen it since I've watched the other ones, but I normally watch the original like once every 2 years or so, just because I genuinely think it's like a plus 10 out of 10 movie. Like I think it's one of the most well made sports movies because it's not just like a good sports movie. It's not just for the sport. So they kind of, and I love. Do you know Ralph Macchio was 20, I think 21 while making that movie?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He's in his like 60s now, and
Actually
he looks
makes
like he's
sense
in his 40s.
I remember he says in this season, "I'm the same age Mr. Miyagi was when we first met," and I was like, "No, you're so
I know.
young."
He looks like he's in his 40s. Like I was watching some interview with the whole cast at like Comic Con, some special thing, and it's like, "What's your special talent?" And Ralph Macchio's like looking younger than I actually am. And then I looked up his age, and I think he's in his 60s. I'll look it up right now.
Yeah.
But I was just like, "What? Like that's insane." Ralph Macchio, where is this? He's born in. Was that 59?
Wow.
Born, am I doing math right? Yeah. Born in 1961.
There you go. Yeah.
Bizarre. That's so crazy. He was how was that? I'm trying doing quick math. He was 23 when the Karate Kid came out. Whereas he looked like he was like 16 at most.
Yeah.
That's a skill. That must have sucked when he was a kid, but now it's probably like, yeah.
Yeah, now he likes it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when I first started Cobra Kai, I'd seen the original a couple of times. I really liked it. But every time I watch the show, when this new season comes out, it always starts like a resurgence of my interest in the Karate Kid. I'm always like really hyped about it and interested in the films again. Like, go back and watch it. And I like it for that reason. It gets me excited.
Me too. Like when I watched it, I remember I was like, oh yeah, I need to rewatch all the movies. Now I probably will like watch them all probably like this month or like next month or something.
Yeah.
But I just need to, like, besides the first one, because I watched the first one like 2 or 3 months ago in school, which I was really happy. I was like, yeah, Karate Kid, because again, like I love it, and it's really fun to see. It gives you, like as you said, a different perspective. Like we talked about, after you've watched Cobra Kai, it kind of sets us where you're really thinking, who's the good one, who's the bad one, and like obviously we already covered that, but it gives it a cool look, and that's what I like is when a show that really the show should not work. Like when on paper, it should not work. When you have it coming out 30 plus years, like after 30, 35, we'll say just over 30 years after the original movie, like the first movie that everyone loves, but like most people really like to love The Karate Kid.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't have worked, but then when I remember watching it, I was like, why is this so good? Like, how did they really pull this off?
Yeah.
And
yeah, I agree, because I saw like the trailer for it on YouTube and I thought, really, are they doing more Karate Kid? And then I was like I was like, I'm not like such a huge fan of the Karate Kid side. It's amazing how they've kept my attention and everything. So
where's everyone at? Well, you can be active. Yeah, active in the chat. You can ask us stuff about our. If you okay, he hasn't seen it.
Maybe we just binged it too quickly and everyone's still watching it.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that I sometimes, like, I also watched a show called Letterkenny, which I reviewed.
Oh, yeah,
and I watch it all in either a day or two. And like Cobra Kai, I watch all in a day just because I want to have my review the next day. Letterkenny, I just had to. Yeah, you can ask us questions, or like if you've seen the show, you can ask us stuff about it.
He hasn't. This is my friend. I know he hasn't seen the show.
Okay, because he said, "I'm sure I'll get all of this when I watch it." I was like, "Oh."
Yeah,
But,
I mean, It'll be probably a year before I don't know. He gets around to it eventually, so he'll forget everything we've said.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. But yeah, like I watch it so quickly, so in some ways I'm like, did I miss little details, or did I, feel like everything was done by so fast? And I like that it's very bingeable, and
Yeah.
that we kind of they lay a little detail or a little reveal at the end of every single episode, and it hooks you for the next one. That's
I
one
mean,
of, if not my favorite things about the show.
every episode is like structured really well. So
Yeah.
something starts to happen, and you think, "Oh, right, this is actually really good." Like maybe Johnny and Danny are finally getting along, and then just one little thing goes wrong right at the end, and it all falls apart, and you're like, oh, "Okay, I really need to see what happens next now." And I didn't expect this. I didn't expect to binge this all in one day. I was thinking I should probably space this out a bit, and then I was like, I can't help myself. I gotta watch it all.
It's one of those things where there's the part of me that's like, I really want to get my review up really fast because it'll help with the views. Like there's
Yeah,
still that big part, but then there's the thing where it's like I want to kind of really enjoy the show, but I wasn't watching it I was forcing myself to watch it. I was actually
actually, yeah,
wanting to watch every single episode back to back because they made it so interesting. And I like how it's not like you feel like there isn't a story that's been told, because every episode has a little story inside of it. It still
yeah,
tells the complete story while still setting up the next episode. It's like I need to get in frame. there's no, yeah, there we go. There's this, but then there's like this little thing at the end, and it goes into the next one. And I really like that about it.
yeah. They've cracked it. They found it.
Yeah,
Found the formula. It works.
and yeah, I'm interested to see what they'll do with the next seasons, because I hope that they just don't rely too much on the past movies,
Yeah.
because
I mean, it's
I
nice
lo-
to get references,
yeah,
but
oh yeah,
they
like
need to make it.
I don't think it feels forced at all yet, but I feel like if they did this through every single season, then it could feel a little bit. But if they give them like smaller moments, like the part with Elizabeth Shue, I feel like there could be more of, and I really want to see that. I want to see, there may not be, but there might be, and I want to see if they choose to go down that route path, what will happen. I don't think we'll see more of the part 2 characters, but
Yeah,
another thing, side note, I like how the guy taught him, Daniel, the
yeah,
new way, where he's like, and it just like knocks his arm, and then he's like frozen. And I like how he used that against Kreese at the end, which we can talk about in a minute, because that was one of my favorite scenes.
yeah.
But
I mean, they kind of, sorry to cut you off, but they actually resolved. I mean, they resolved the first Karate Kid with Ali coming in and giving her side of the story. They resolved part 2 by having, I don't know the guy's name, but the guy he fought to the death in Karate Kid part 2. So maybe once they've resolved the issues from each film, they can then move on, and then, I mean, obviously there aren't many to go, but
yeah,
that'd be
it kind of it adds that little thing to it, and that's what I like. And on the topic of, what did you think of the fight scene between Kreese, Johnny, and Robbie in Cobra
right.
Kai?
Yeah. I mean, I was excited to just see Johnny go in full rage at Kreese and just
Yeah,
start hailing on him. And then you see, I mean, we know Robbie's there. Actually, because I was thinking that the whole house scene, is Robbie going to come in? Is Robbie gonna suddenly see Tori beating Sam and say stop because he still likes it? I don't know. I was thinking that might happen. And then you see Robbie and you see Johnny react to him, and then you think, oh, Robbie's not gonna like fight his own dad, is he? And then he does. But Johnny has to be a responsible adult. But I mean, obviously, smacks him right into that locker.
yeah.
They haven't shown us Daniel reacting to. I don't know if Daniel actually knows that Johnny was the one to throw Robbie into that locker. Because if he did, he'd probably be angry at Johnny. I don't know. I mean, obviously they team up at the end, but
Yeah, that's what that scene was. It's probably my second favorite besides the house fight at the end, because I like how, finally we're like, as you said, like he's going full rage
yeah,
against Kreese, and that's something that we've really wanted to see. And then like you could kind of see all the, like the blood that's on them all. And then when Robbie comes in, I was like, oh no, because you could tell that Johnny's like, he's saying like, I'm not gonna fight you, like
yeah,
don't make me do this. And I was like, oh no, so he's just trying to like block, and he's like holding it, and he's kicking, and then he finally, like the one time he pushes him, he just
yeah.
but the second he knocks him out, he's like, "Are you okay?" It's like he's doing like the father thing, which I
Yeah,
like how
you can tell.
the more it's gone on because of other people, Johnny's becoming a bit not the best, but still a better
Yeah,
father, and it's going on, and then and then when Daniel comes in, I did not expect him, and that was
yeah.
the one moment where I was like, "What?" Like I remember, like I was like, "No way!" I
Well,
didn't believe it.
I kind of thought because Johnny's, he's being beaten, there
Yeah,
has to be some sort of cool in the cavalry moment. And I was thinking, well, this whole fight just took place at Daniel's house. So if he's going home from the party, he's bound to go and realize that happened. And probably if Johnny thought to go straight to Cobra Kai, then Daniel's probably going to go there. And so I was kind of thinking, oh, come on, he's got to come in and punch him, right? And then he did. And
yeah,
that was great payoff. And then you realize, then when Kreese at the end says, fine, we'll see what happens in the tournament.
yeah.
Cobra Kai versus you guys, and you're like, okay, now season 4 actually has
Set up.
stakes. There is something it's working towards, and you're gonna want to see paid off, which
Oh
is
yeah, and I was thinking like I was actually thinking that they might kill Kreese at the end. Like when I thought that Johnny, I thought there was a chance that
okay.
because Johnny was so like
Yeah,
hopped up that there at least he could like really badly hurt him, and obviously he had blood all down his face, which
yeah,
was like the whole Vietnam thing because they intercut the Vietnam scenes with that fight scene, didn't?
yeah, to show like how Kreese was. Yeah, yeah, they
Yeah,
did.
okay. That's what I thought. I was like, when I was thinking about it, I was like, I'm pretty sure. And then again, that added to and added to the weight because you see him kind of, getting like the stereotypical traditional PTSD Nam flashbacks that everyone obviously jokes about. But I like how they actually use that and the score too, which I liked how there were a few scenes where they really built it up and then it was like
Yeah,
nothing, and I was like, come on. But there were a few where I was like, okay, that's really smart, and I like that.
yeah. I really did like the ending, and it's because season 2 had a really shocking ending, obviously.
Yeah.
But you were sort of thinking, God, where is this going to go now? But season 3 it ends with a shock. Obviously, they've all teamed up, but you have a clear goal for season 4 now, and that's going to make it more like the stakes are made obvious, and
Yeah.
you've got to go for that. That's what I
Yeah.
like.
And I think that it was like cool because it's a different type of setup. Whereas
Yeah,
in 2 to 3, it was like this, like what's gonna happen? Like, are these people gonna live? Like they're actually when I was trying to describe the plot without spoiling it, I said Miguel and Robbie find themselves in life-threatening situations because one is literally in a coma, the other one is like homeless,
yeah,
basically living on the streets. And when he first cut his hair, I didn't even recognize him. I was like, what? Like that looks so weird. Just because it was so different. And then it was kind of cool though because they had, they had this like shock at the end of season 2, but here it's like it intrigues you. It's like what's gonna happen,
yeah.
but you're not like like you were at the end of the last one.
And like I don't know his name, but from the original Cobra Kai's from the first film, you see them brought back in season 2, and one of them,
Yeah,
dies in the show, and then you find out. I found out he's dead in real life, and they had a at the end of the first episode, in loving memory of, and I thought
yeah.
that was good that
Yeah,
they
I
did.
was like, because I remember like hearing about that, and then when they had that, I was like, oh, like that's
But
sad.
it just shows that they're willing to. I mean, that character. I think his only line was "get him a body bag," but you can
Yeah,
tell that they're still
Body
trying to,
bag, yeah.
especially because they know, if the actor's going to die, then they want to make sure his character has had emotional closure, and which I
Yeah.
think is a really good thing that the
Oh
show did.
yeah, and that scene in season 2 was like shocking. I was like,
Yeah,
oh no, like what are they? That was a big Cobra Kai moment, like bad Cobra Kai, where they
yeah,
brought them all out there, and that like obviously that's a different season, but I was just like, wow. And I like how, as I said before, the show has just consistently gotten better and better, and
yeah.
I mean love the first season. I think it's fantastic, and same with the second one. But they've just all built. And I
They
think
have.
because of the emotions that have also, because we've gotten to know these characters more, and they're not just random teenagers. They're not just like annoying teenagers. They're, the kids of these rivals from 30 years ago, and it's their friends. And then through like violence, we've seen how it's really affected them. And like with Sam, it's like this mental trauma where she freezes up. And
Yeah.
I really like that.
And speaking, just sorry, just remember this now. But speaking of them being the kids, I noticed something when I rewatched the first Karate Kid. When they're in Cobra Kai dojo, Kreese calls out, and it might just be, so I don't know, it might be a coincidence, but he calls out the name Robinson, and then the name of the girl who went to the other school because of the fight, her name was Aisha Robinson. So I was kind of always
Uh,
thinking, as soon as I realized, as soon as I saw that, I was like, maybe she is. But then
maybe.
I don't know if her dad was a Cobra Kai, he would probably have something to say about her going to a version of, I don't know. It could be.
That's a cool thing. There's like the
Yeah.
little things that make you think. And yes, Aisha, that's her name. I know we were talking about it earlier, but now that you say it, I'm like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's like little things where they're not fully giving off some of the details. They're saving some, and I like
Yeah.
that. And they're gonna keep doing that too. I forget if it was renewed to like, or is planned to do like 6 or 8 seasons or something, which I'm okay with as long as
Yeah.
it
I want more.
doesn't become like force or whatever. Just I'd like, if they come every single year, I'm like, that'd be great. That'd be
Yeah.
perfect because I
That,
enjoy watching it every single time. Like there has not been a bad episode of the entire show.
yeah, that's true. It's
Yeah.
consistent.
Yeah, it's easily one of my favorite shows of like recent memory. Like I love The Mandalorian, but season 1 of The Mandalorian had a few episodes where it was like, whereas this one hasn't had a single bad one. Not at
Yeah.
all. And I
No,
think
I agree.
maybe the highs of The Mandalorian are a little bit higher, but like I mean that's not the greatest comparison. That's just the other newer show. Like there's
Yeah.
other like there's Barry and there's like other newer shows, but this one I'm just like, this is weirdly never would have expected to be saying it 5 years ago, but this is one of the best shows I think personally that's on air right now or on Netflix, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I
And
agree.
yeah. Do you have anything else you want to talk about before we end this?
No, I mean, I think I said everything I can remember. Yeah, that's all I have to
Yeah.
say about Cobra Kai. It was a great season, better than the other two in my opinion. But I think, as you said, I love them all, and I'm actually, it's left me really excited for future seasons.
Honestly, same. Like I'm excited to see like what they're gonna do with the future seasons. But I agree with you. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I think that it's surprising how well it's being pulled off. All the acting is phenomenal, especially from our leads. And yes, and thank you, Josh, for joining me for
Uh,
this. And thank you to the people in the chat for joining us. And if you'd
yeah,
like to see more like this, then you can write that in the chat for the minute we have left. But yes, if you haven't already, check out both of our reviews, our non-spoiler, but still like official reviews
yeah.
of Cobra Kai Season 3. And yeah, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Over and out.